Welcome to the Dumb Idea Podcast with Mike and Alex. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share this video or podcast on any platform that you're listening on. Please visit us at www.dumbideapodcast.com. All right, welcome back to another show. We appreciate you coming back and listening. If you can, we've been asking this a lot over the last few episodes. If you can share this podcast with a friend, or three, that'd be great. Again, you can share it on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at Dumb Idea Podcast. We have links on our website, dumbideapodcast.com, where you can go directly to our Facebook page. You can also find us on YouTube or the Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, Spotify, I believe Deezer, Amazon. We're on almost any platform that has podcasts you can imagine. So if anyone could, that'd be great. If you could share this episode with at least 3 people, that'd be great. Some interesting news came out of the Twitter world, about the Twitter world recently. Elon Musk put out a tweet, and it was a poll, I believe, basically saying, Twitter's unfair toward conservative people. What should I do? And I think Mike Cernovich kind of just threw out there, you should buy Twitter. And everyone just kind of brushed off. It was just like a passing comment, right? Well, so it is the 5th of April right now. And that makes us what, Tuesday? Yeah. Wednesday. Tuesday. So Monday, the 4th of April, the news came out through an SEC filing that Elon Musk bought 9.8% of Twitter for $2.4 billion, which makes him Twitter's largest shareholder. Now, I don't do much with Twitter. I got rid of Twitter. I had 2 accounts. I got rid of one. I kept one just to keep track of some news feeds or mostly sports feeds.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever tweeted anything. So yeah, I am not a big Twitter fan. It's a trash can.
Yeah, for my days when I was really on it with my other account, it is like you said, it's trash.
Yeah. What did Joe Rogan say? It's just a bunch of people dunking on each other.
Right. Yeah. It's where conservatives go to own the libs, and it's where the libs go to shame conservatives.
Yeah.
It's basically all it is. That it's like everyone's trying to go there to point out each other's hypocrisy, and nobody is actually there to talk and or listen or learn or share viewpoints or anything. You're literally just there to go make someone's day shitty. And you're going to hit them wherever you think it's going to hurt the most.
Yep.
But Twitter, I'd say over the last 4 years, maybe 5, has put in policies, or at least enforced policies that went after the more conservative voices on the platform. For example, they had a policy against inciting violence. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they would ban people for just inconspicuous, hey, we should go riot. Well, if you were conservative, you might get a warning or a ban. But if you were a liberal, you could literally advocate to go kill people.
Yeah.
And you could literally use the words, let's go kill this MFer, and nothing would happen.
As long as the target of your killing was on the right side of the aisle, you were fine.
Yeah. I think it was 3 years ago, Joe Rogan was doing his podcast. He saw it in California. He had Tim Pool on. Now, Tim does his own show called Timcast. That's on YouTube. Has a couple of channels there. It's gotten much bigger now than when he was on Rogan 3 years ago. Rogan kind of launched his career, but it was mostly because of this conversation. And not only was Tim Pool on, but Jack Dorsey was on the same show, and one of Jack's executives at Twitter. And Tim put the screws to them. And he was bringing up specific examples of how they weren't enforcing their policy equally. Mm-hmm. And the lady who was the executive in the room said, basically at the end of it, like after she tried to argue possible reasons why, she basically just said, okay, well, I'll have to go back and I'll have to go talk about it with my team. And that was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now, whether you like him or hate him, Donald Trump was also on Twitter.
Yeah.
He got banned off of Twitter.
Yeah. At the time, as sitting president of the United States when he got banned.
Correct. And right in the middle of a re-election. Mm-hmm. Now, keep in mind, he got banned off of Twitter. And they said because he was inciting violence, I believe.
Yeah.
However, the Ayatollah of Iran,
yes,
has an account on Twitter.
Death to America. The Taliban still has an account on Twitter.
Yeah. Like people who have actually called for violence towards certain individuals.
People who are actively
on Twitter,
like killing people.
Yes. Yes. And they weren't kicked off.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that Twitter sympathizes with the Ayatollah of Iran. I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it seems that the disciplinary the disciplinary action on behalf of Twitter seems to come down on a certain type of or a certain person who thinks of a certain type of way. Mm-hmm. And I think back 3 years ago, Tim Pool actually showed the ratio was like 21-1. Conservatives to liberals.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not one of those people, like in basketball, people say the foul should be even. I'm not, if one team fouls another team 21 times and the other team doesn't foul someone, it shouldn't be, 10-10 fouls.
Yeah.
It should be 21-1.
Yeah.
But they were able to find specific examples of, well, this is inciting violence by actually inciting violence. This could be construed as not inciting violence. Like there was a gray area here. You decided to ban this person in the gray area, but not the one that was way inside the inciting violence realm.
Yeah. Well, and they kicked a bunch of people off after the January 6th. And I know people call that the insurrection or the coup. It was a bunch of droogs running through the Capitol. I'm not going to give them the credit of saying that it was a coup or
anyone who's called it an insurrection or a coup has never seen an insurrection or a coup.
Right.
Because if you want to see one, look at what happened in Myanmar.
Yeah.
Or how about Syria with the Ba'ath Party in the 70s? Mm-hmm. Or Iraq.
Yeah.
With the Ba'ath Party.
Yeah.
So that's how Saddam came into power.
Mm-hmm. Or Iran when the Shah was overthrown. I mean, it happens. So, someone's usually getting killed.
They're actual guns and people actually get shot and die.
And it generally involves the military. The military will turn on or a significant portion of the military will turn. There was almost a coup in Turkey.
Right.
With against Erdogan. Those are coups.
Before people go off the handle, though, I don't think the people involved with what happened on January 6th, I'm not saying they did the right thing.
No one's defending their action.
No, I don't defend any.
Yeah.
If they go to jail, they go to jail.
Yeah.
They probably should. Mm-hmm. But to call it an insurrection,
it's hyperbole. It's hyperbole.
It's a bit much.
Yeah. And the thing is, so they said that those people were all banned, and then they shut Parler down because it was used to coordinate the actions of that. Okay, well, and what do you think Antifa's been using to burn cities down? But that's fine, and that's where the whole and it just where it's like, okay, well, what these people did over here wasn't any good, and they get kicked off. That's fine, but these guys over here, we can't look to them as like I don't want my kids to go join Antifa,
right?
You know,
But if you bring that up, if you try and say, well, what about these guys? They was, well, that's what about.
it's what about exactly.
I mean, no. I'm just saying, look, if there are rules, why are we not enforcing them equally
Yeah.
on both sides?
Yep.
That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that this side is right and that side is right, or that side is wrong and that side is wrong. I don't really care.
Yeah.
My thing is this. As someone who believes in free speech, and don't give me that garbage about, well, it's a private company, they can do what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's almost saying like the telephones were private companies. Well, yeah, they were private companies and they became regulated utilities because everyone needed a telephone.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter is essentially a town square
Yep.
that people use for communication purposes. It exists on the ether of the internet.
Yeah. And it's a town square I choose not to participate in.
True, and it's almost twofold a little bit because Twitter's going to say, "Well, we're a private company." Yeah, but you did such a good job building this company that you became the national town square, and now you're pretty much a public utility.
Yeah.
You did such a great job, but now this is what you become. It's just like the telephone company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to be honest, the internet companies have done the same thing now, and they're still not regulated utilities.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge fight that they've been fighting against for years, and the internet companies have been fighting against it for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have billions upon billions of dollars to lobby Congress to make sure that they're not regulated like utilities.
Correct.
Which is the only reason why they're not.
Yeah.
So that being said, it's like if you're going to be on the interweb and be the place where everyone goes, and when I say everyone that wants to.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are people that don't want to be there. They're not going to be there. But when you have, a certain billion number of users, and even those numbers could be fudged, if you're going to have these rules, you have a responsibility to weigh them evenly, not just against people that you don't like what they're saying or like what side they're on.
Well, and the thing is, and I've said this before, because eventually the people in charge, so it all seems like a great idea when you're in charge. Eventually you're not going to be in charge. And then it's going to get flipped. And then you're not going to like being muzzled or censored. And the thing with Twitter, like, even though I choose not to participate in it, how many news cycles start with a tweet?
Right.
Or are perpetuated with a tweet? According to a tweet from such and such, and then they go into this whole story about whatever from a tweet from some donkey who works for the New York Times. And then, they were kicking people off for misinformation and disinformation, right. Which turns out all that stuff they were getting kicked off for is now the actual running narrative. When they're saying, oh, it was a lab leak. You get kicked off for that.
They did. There were people that got kicked off for saying that COVID-19 was released from a lab in China.
Yeah.
In Wuhan.
Yeah. And now that's 2 years into it is pretty much the
likely possibility.
Yeah. And then how many people were kicked off for saying the vaccines, you could still get COVID with the vaccine.
Right.
But they were kicked off then. And the problem is, like, when you call everything you disagree with a conspiracy theory.
Or disinformation.
Or misinformation. And when you call it that, when you have the actual conspiracy nut that's cooking up like craziness in their head, the Alex Jones of the world, that guy's right sometimes too. But when you're kicking people off and saying that it's conspiracies, and then 2 years later you're just kind of adding fuel to the other wild conspiracies that are out there.
Yeah.
And perpetuating it further, when if you would just give people space to actually openly discuss things, I think you'd find, number one, you'd find more harmony, or at least people meeting in the middle, because you could hear this side, you could hear that side. When you just shut down the side you don't like, and the only side that's available to the mainstream is the company line, it just further entrenches the other side into thinking. And then especially when what they're saying, what the powers that be are saying is misinformation, then turns out to be true 2 years later, you're just emboldening the true crazies.
Yeah, and so I was listening to Bill Maher, and he was talking about he was doing his new rules segment, I think. And this is going to talk more about the arrogance of the left a little bit, and how even when they're trying to be reasonable, they come off as condescending, and that they don't think that they were possibly wrong on any of this.
Right.
So Bill Maher pretty much said, as we get further and further away from the election, rather than shouting down the conservatives, and as they're poking their head above the water, we shouldn't be yelling at them like you're awful, you're a horrible human being, how dare you, what is wrong with you? He said, we should be welcoming them back in with open arms or with a handshake. It's like, you think that you were right.
Yeah.
Like you think that the Wuhan lab thing was still a conspiracy theory, and that we're poking, like, not we're, but those people are just poking their heads up, and you should embrace them as if you're some, it's like a Xerxes from 300.
I was
like
just thinking.
Some merciful god.
Yeah. What is it? But I am kind.
Right. I am kind.
Yeah.
Lay down your weapons.
Yeah.
You can have everything you want.
Yeah.
I am kind.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to welcome these people back in when you were wrong?
Right.
And you were silencing them.
Yeah.
You silenced Brett Weinstein. Mm-hmm. You silenced the New York Post article about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah.
Which, oh, by the way, just last month, because the liberal news organizations like the New York Post and the Washington Post decided that, oh, this is real. Yeah. Now we can talk about it.
Yeah.
However, June 2020, when the New York Post tweeted about it, Twitter took it down and said it was misinformation.
Yeah, and they said they couldn't because it was hacked or illegally stolen or something.
Stolen, yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was labeled as dis or misinformation. Mm-hmm. The New York Times said it was, barely even gave it any lip service, but said it was disinformation.
Yeah.
Washington Post, disinformation. CNN, disinformation. MSNBC, disinformation. They all said disinformation.
Of course.
Conspiracy theory, the wackos. Yeah. When in reality, they didn't want to hurt their candidate's possible election.
Yeah.
To overthrow Orange Man Bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with a place like Twitter and Facebook is that their fact checkers are the Washington Post and the New York Times.
Right.
That's their fact checkers. That's it. They didn't use actual fact checkers to find out if the information was true. They went to an ideological news, and I'm going to put news in quotes, source, to decide whether something was true or untrue.
Yeah, it's like if you were playing a game.
Yeah.
So the Ravens were playing the Steelers, and the referees were just Steelers bench guys. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, hey, put this shirt on. You're a referee now. Like, right. They're still wearing their yellow Steeler pants with the black stripe.
Yeah.
But they're the referees.
Or it would be like going to... It would be like... Let's say like the Ukraine-Russian war. Mm-hmm. It'd be like having the Russian news source be the fact checker of information in Russia.
Yeah.
Of course, the Russians' information is going to be the truth, and everything else is going to be disinformation.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Russian news sources are going to do in Russia. Okay. Well, that's what the New York Times and Washington... that's what Facebook and Twitter were doing with their news sources.
Yeah.
Like, they were literally flagging things as misinformation, or they would just remove the tweet, or they would say... Or they would ban the account holder, like with the Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
They banned the account holder, and they said, you can have your account back, but you have to delete the tweet.
Yeah.
And Babylon Bee's not deleting the tweet, so they don't get their account back. Mm-hmm. this type of I'm not going to call it censorship, but this type of skewing of information and something that has become a public utility is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And not for the reason people think. Mold grows in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
The worst things that you can think of in this society will grow in the dark, especially if you create anger and fear.
Yeah.
Because you're going to drive people into that darkness. Like right now, the groups that are having a field day recruiting are Nazis,
Militias, probably.
Yeah. Militias, all these paranoid people that have guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pro-gun person.
Yeah.
But you mix crazy with gun and you have a problem.
Yeah.
But, for example, I told this story when we went down to Florida. There was that group of this Nazi protest or Nazi organization with the swastika Nazi flag on an overpass. You know, instead of 12 to 15 people on an overpass, you probably only have 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But you're pushing people that normally wouldn't go that way, wouldn't even think that way, but they're finding acceptance amongst those people, even though they don't believe what those people believe.
Yeah.
But they get pushed toward those groups and they start talking. Well, maybe this makes sense. Maybe I do believe this. They get brainwashed.
Yeah.
But just like it happens on the right and the left, though.
Yeah.
Anyone can be brainwashed. It's like, you know, for anyone that wants to know how all that works, watch The Social Dilemma. And people that used to work for Facebook go into how exactly they could mold your mind to think a certain way just by the information that they fed you. That only certain news articles would go in front of you because they need you to click on them.
Right.
So they only put the articles in front of you that you're most likely to click based on things that you like, who you respond to, who do you comment back with, whose pictures are you liking? Mm-hmm. Do you like baseball pics and softball pics? Well, we're going to show you more baseball and softball articles. Do you like news articles with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi? Okay, well, you're going to get more liberally biased articles.
Yeah.
And that because you're more likely to click on them, mm-hmm. which Facebook gets money from.
Right.
Right? It's all about money with them. And my point here is if you silence a rational person who thought that the virus came out of a lab and you shouted them down and told them it was disinformation, they're going to cower back a little bit. They're going to feel ganged up on. They're going to feel ostracized. And you're going to push them toward people that have very nefarious purposes in life. And you're pushing them that way. They don't actually believe what those people believe in, but they're accepting the people that you're shouting down and pushing away. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, they were right to begin with.
Yeah.
So you basically created an enemy when you were the one that was wrong. And now you're going to play Xerxes and say you're the merciful one.
Right.
Come back and let me embrace you.
Yeah, you could rejoin polite society now.
Yeah. How about you apologize
Yeah.
to these people and say, hey, we really screwed this one up. Yeah, I mean, the best thing, and Joe Rogan kind of points to he subscribes to the New York Times. The New York Times is one of the oldest news institutions in this country.
Yeah, it's the paper of record.
Yeah, right. It was one of the best news organizations. And in the last 4 to 5 years, they've completely tarnished their reputation as being the news source in this country. And that's sad. That was one of the oldest news institutions in this country.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they do great work. But there is a certain faction over there. And don't take my word for it. Go read articles from Glenn Greenwald and Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss used to work for the New York Times. And she even said, like, she would submit news articles. She would submit her articles. And her editor would send them back to her. And she barely recognized the article. But they put it out anyway with her name on it.
Yeah. And
And
then she doesn't write the headlines.
right.
The copy editor writes the headlines.
Yeah.
So,
But you don't hear about that until they leave.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't leave because the New York Times pays their people well.
Well, yeah. To work as a writer at the New York Times is like making it to Major League Baseball as a pitcher.
Yeah.
If you work for the Annapolis Gazette, the Capital Gazette, like that's kind of like single A baseball.
Yeah.
But to go there, you're in the big leagues, but they've all completely undercut their own credibility, and we've said it before how they've done it. And look, if you hated Orange Man bad that much, then there's a place for that. It's called the op-eds.
Right.
But it shouldn't be infiltrating itself into like what people would consider news. But it's all op-eds.
Well, do you remember what happened in the New York Times over an op-ed? Remember Tom Cotton wrote that op-ed?
Yeah.
And like apparently some portion of the New York Times staff almost revolted against their bosses.
Yeah, and it happened.
They couldn't believe they would run it.
Yeah.
It's an op-ed,
right? And
they've run conservative op-eds forever.
Yeah, and it happened to it happened with Politico.
Yeah.
So Politico has a thing they publish daily called the Playbook, and every now and then they'll get a conservative to write the Playbook. And this particular day was Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro wrote the Politico Playbook, and they had a revolt among the young staffers. The problem is they listen to these people.
Right.
If I owned a company and I had a bunch of employees come to me and say, if you do X, Y, and Z, we're leaving. Okay, there's the door. You're not telling me how to run this company.
Right.
But you see it time and time again with these staffers, and they say the woke staffers. I'm just going to say they're young, but they're afraid of them. Like you're a junior nothing here, but they cow to them, and it just emboldens them further.
I'm gonna counter your young person statement. So the big company in the news right now is Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially with the parental rights and education bill,
Yes.
which the left has a completely different moniker for it,
Right.
even though it has nothing to do with the moniker.
Mm.
But they do it to get everyone riled up,
Yeah.
right? There was a video leaked about an internal Disney staff meeting, and this lady was probably in her 50s, and she was the one advocating that Disney content should have more representation of social issues that they agreed with. And of course, these were more liberal viewpoints. And then, of course, Bob Chapek, as the CEO, has now come out and said that they're going to work to repeal the bill.
Right. And he initially said they were going to stay out of it, and then
right, but then
these other yeah.
But from what I understand, and it's just from what I've read, and I don't know how much of it's true, but it seems there's a real minority in the executive level of Disney that is in his ear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess there was a production head at Marvel also in the same boat, who made a speech at the GLAAD Awards, which is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance, I believe, who basically said, we're going to keep pushing these narratives. It's like, well, wait a minute. Not everybody wants narratives in their entertainment.
No, and we've talked about it before on this show, where I just want to be mindlessly entertained.
Yes.
And, for that, it's when you're dealing with kids' entertainment, do you want do you want certain agendas or any agenda pushed? Why can't it just be fun, goofy stuff for kids?
Yeah. So for example, the latest movie from Pixar was Turning Red.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I was uncomfortable watching it, but it definitely, because it had to do with some puberty issues.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's very, it's kind of slid in there,
Mm-hmm.
but it's there.
Yeah.
And you notice it. And if they were doing this in the past, it was much less noticeable in the past than it was in this movie. It was a little bit more in your face in this one. To the point where if you're an adult watching, especially if you're watching this with your child, and you're really not ready for that conversation yet,
Right.
it can be a little uncomfortable. Now, for the most part, the kids don't know. They don't get the symbolism.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like, hey, wait a minute. Does this really need to be in the movie?
Mm-hmm.
With my kids? You know, it's like my kids are young. They don't need to be. They don't need this education right now.
Right.
They're not in that stage of life. But apparently there are people higher up in Disney that believe that they're going to bypass me as the parent and talk directly to my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing that as Disney and Pixar, thinking that those messages aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
So of course it's okay to watch this. It's a Disney Pixar movie. It's safe.
Right. You're thinking you don't have to have that guard up.
Right.
You know, it's like if you put, you know, you have the baby pool at the, you go to the pool, there's a baby pool.
Mm-hmm.
And great, you always watch your kid when they're in the water, but still if I have a 2-year-old and they're walking around and they've got their little, the water wing things on, and they're pretty safe in the pool. You know, I don't have to be right there on top of them. But then you have the baby pool, but in the baby pool that you don't know about, there's like a 12-foot hole.
Right.
You know, and you're like, well, now knowing that, like, I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to, I'm going to be in there with them because it does drop off to 12 feet. And if I know that, I'm cool with it. But if I don't know that the 12-foot hole is there, and I just chuck him in there,
right,
and next you know, like, where'd he go? Oh, he's at the bottom of the 12-foot hole
right,
that's in there. Well, when did that get put in there? Oh, yeah, we thought it would be fun to put that in there.
Right.
Because we think that kids should know about that. Well, no, I'm not ready for that with him yet. He needs to be splashed around and, playing with the daisy that's squirting water out at him.
Right. And not only we put it in there, but we made sure it looked like the rest of the pool, so you didn't see it coming.
Right.
Right? Like, no, we wanted you to put your kid in here, and we put the 12-foot hole in there, but we made sure you couldn't see it because it's underneath the water.
Yeah.
It's underneath your sight line there. You can't see it because the water's reflecting, so you only see the reflection. You don't see the hole until your kid's in it.
Right.
And then you got to have that awkward conversation now.
Yeah.
And like, I got a daughter that's creeping up on that age.
Mm-hmm.
And she's starting, my wife gave her the book, which I was like, why'd you give her the book at this age? Like, maybe not so soon. But of course she reads. She's reading the book and she's hearing it. And she said, now she sees the movie. She's like, I wonder, is this like this, Mommy? And now my wife's got to have the conversation with her. Like, hey,
you're the
one that gave her the book.
See, I have boys and they were just bored by it because there was nothing exploding.
Right.
So there's no machines. I think maybe the 4-year-old liked it because he could watch, all he saw was just a fluffy bear running around.
Exactly. Right.
Getting mad at stuff.
Right. Right. Oh, cool. I mean, some of the inferences were not delicate. It's like, this young girl coming of age turns into a big red animal and gets really, really angry and doesn't know what to do with herself.
It's like when when you're a kid and so my parents would get a movie like Spaceballs.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd watch Spaceballs. Now, I think when Spaceballs came out, I was maybe like my kid's age,
right,
7, 8 years old. And you're just seeing it, it's like, oh, it's Star Wars. And John Candy looks like a dog, and it's funny. But then you don't understand like all of the humor that's in it. And then you watch it again as an adult, and you're like, oh my God, this is so... You're watching it from a different level.
Right.
But that's, at this level, a great scene of that is Airplane. So in Airplane, Leslie Nielsen's on the plane, and they have the autopilot on. Well, the autopilot's this blow-up inflatable thing. So then the autopilot fails. It starts to deflate. So then the flight attendant, who's like the female lead in the movie, blows the thing back up. So she's like bent over because the little thing to blow it up is like right at the autopilot's belt.
Right.
And then the autopilot like is leaning back with this big smile on his face. As a kid, you don't understand what that means. Then as an adult, you're dying laughing at it. Right. And my kids are there and they're like, they just see an airplane.
This movie sucks.
Yeah. Like, what's this idiot laughing at?
Right.
I'm going to go, is anything going to blow up here?
Right.
So, but you understand as a parent when you do that, okay, the kids aren't going to get these jokes. So, but when it's intentionally kind of subterfuge put in there so the kids can understand it. And look, I have no problem with acceptance. I have no problem at all with that. I don't, there are people that are freaking out. There's like, every commercial, there's no white people anymore. I don't care. I don't watch the commercials anyway. I'm glad that this lady is making money off the commercial, getting a gig.
But it's also not like, hey, I didn't know black people like McDonald's too. They weren't eating McDonald's before that, but now they're in the commercial. They must be.
They must be. Oh my God, I didn't know that. But
they like crispy fries too. They are heaven. But we're all one.
Yeah, and I don't care about that stuff at all. Like, and as far as accepting people that are living, who are gay or trans or whatever it is, like, I've raised my children to be kind and decent humans, independent of Disney deciding to put sexual innuendo in kids' films.
Right.
I don't see the need, like in Toy Story, like you can tell that Woody and the female cow, what's the other cowgirl?
Jessie?
Yeah.
No, man, he's into Bo Peep.
Or Bo Peep, yeah. Like, they have it, but it's very subtle.
Right.
It doesn't need to be like, I don't need to see like the toys like getting at it.
No. Well, it's like Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head.
Yeah.
Fighting like the 50-year-old couple there,
right. Right. So, that's stuff that as a parent is in there.
Now here's let me ask you, let's say it was Toy Story and they had Mr. Potato Head married to Mr. Potato Head.
I don't really care.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it would matter. Like, that's okay. Whatever. It's gay potato head's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we can't. I don't think we can call him Mr. and Mr. Potato Head.
Well, no, they changed the name. It's just Potato Head.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
They just call it Mr. and Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
But then you're locking the women out. So maybe Mrs. M. Then you have another one called Mrs. and Mrs. Potato Head.
So I don't know. Call it Potato Head.
For sure. Yeah. Well.
But it kind of like, but does Potato Head still have a mustache? Because that was one of the things that, now the original Potato Head didn't come with a plastic potato. You actually used a potato.
Sometimes, hey, look, some Mrs. Potato Heads have mustaches. What are you going to do,
But getting back to Elon, so, because we kind of veered off a little bit, but with Elon Musk buying Twitter, now they have just offered him a seat on the board as well.
He's on the board of directors now. He's a director on the board of directors.
And that's just changing the paperwork on the SEC filing.
It does give him a seat at the table as far as the direction of the company, though.
Yeah. So does he come in and say, we're not doing this anymore? And the thing is, the leverage that he holds, he could be outvoted by the other shareholders. Mm-hmm. But if Elon Musk decides to just go and sell that 10%, that tanks the value of that stock.
Yeah, but it went up 25% when he bought it.
Yeah.
So if he sells it and it tanks at 25%, they're still back where they started. Right. I think more, what'll probably end up happening is he'll get his seat on the board. It's a different voice in the room. Mm-hmm. And depending on who the other shareholders are, he might already have allies on that board that were outnumbered before.
Yeah.
So even though he only owns about 10%, he might have 30 to 40% in that board that agree with him. Mm-hmm. So who knows? I mean, it could have been, and even Jack Dorsey even came out and said that he's not happy with where the internet went from when he started to where it is now, which leads some people to believe that Jack was kind of being forced down a path he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Which is why he ended up leaving Twitter to go be the CEO of Blocker, which was Square. Mm-hmm. But because he had founded Square as well. But he was the CEO of Twitter. Right? So some people think that he wasn't comfortable doing some of the things that he was being told to do as the CEO of Twitter. And so all I'm saying is it might not be immediate, but gradually you might see a shift at Twitter as far as what's allowed on the platform and what isn't, or at least a more even-handed acts as far as what gets deemed misinformation, or even if they just had actual fact checkers and not these partisan institutions.
Yeah.
But then how do you find people without any bias?
Yeah,
you can't, right?
It's almost impossible.
So then what do you do? You find if you have a 6-member, fact-finding group, whatever you want to call it, task force. I hate task forces, but whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. You get 3 liberals and 3 conservatives. And if there's a tie goes to not banning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah. But who knows what they'll end up doing.
But then you then have to have so do those people go and read every single tweet that's made?
No, so they only have to look at the ones that get flagged. Okay. Now, of course, there's some Looney Tunes that'll flag everything. Right. But the other thing people don't understand about Elon Musk, SpaceX is a private company at this point. Mm-hmm. It hasn't gone public yet. When SpaceX finally goes public, his wealth could double. Yeah. Because SpaceX, I mean, they got the rocket cost down. They got reusable rockets and reusable, what's the middle thing? Ships.
Okay, yeah, like capsule or...
Yeah. So he's brought the cost of space travel way down just by making everything reusable. He's already got contracts with NASA to send satellites up in space. Mm-hmm. And eventually I think they're planning on having him send the astronauts up in space.
Okay. Rather than relying on Russians?
Right now we pay the Russians. Yeah. For every ride up there. Yeah. That company, I think, is going to be worth an ton of money. Yeah. Because he also owns Starlink, too. Mm-hmm. Which is also private. Yeah. Not public yet. Starlink, in all the initial tests on Starlink have been very positive as far as the internet speeds it's brought to the rural communities and for the price that it has.
Well, a lot of that information is coming out of Ukraine is coming through Starlink.
Yeah, and so basically right now, for $115 a month, people are getting broadband speeds. Mm-hmm. Now, the equipment's expensive, and that's going to be... But the equipment is expensive now. As he scales it and he gets the equipment to be smaller, yeah, and he will, I'd say in like 3 years, if your startup costs are maybe $300, mm-hmm, and you can get broadband speed for $100, $110 a month, especially where it's not available at the moment, that's a big game changer. And so he could literally take 2 companies public, like he did with Tesla, and double or triple his wealth. What if he buys all of Twitter? Yeah. And keep this in mind when you're talking about Elon Musk, and I'm sure there were some business reasons for doing this. He made Tesla's IP public. Mm-hmm. Basically, all the technology that goes into making a Tesla car, the charging ports. So like the charging port itself is open source. Right. So anybody can use his plug-in charging mechanism. Mm-hmm. Now he did like there are selfish reasons for doing that because you want that plug to be universal.
Right. So and I think every other manufacturer is they come out with their electric cars, and they're coming out with them. Ford with the E150, Chevrolet has the Silverado, but the E is like blue, so it's the Silverado.
Mm-hmm. We got Polestar.
Yeah, Rivian or whatever. Porsche,
Rivian, yeah.
Yeah, Porsche has the
Taycan.
Yep, and then there's the. Did you say Polestar already?
So Polestar, you got Audi with the e-tron.
Yep.
Actually, Audi has. What is it? My buddy's got one. It's a wagon. Is that the e-tron? Maybe that's the e-tron. It's basically like an Audi Allroad, but it's electric.
Yep.
But they have the Audi. It's like the R8, but electric too. But it's 4 doors. So I saw it on TV today. But anyway, the e-tron though, my buddy's got the e-tron. Loves it.
Yeah.
Loves it. But if they're not using the Tesla plug, there's an adapter for them to be able to use the Tesla plug.
And the thing is, like, if you look at, let's use gas stations. So imagine if Ford used one size, Ford used, had a 1-inch filler, and then General Motors used a 2-inch one. So you could go to any gas station with GM, but Ford, you'd have to make sure they had the right size nozzle in order to be able to use to fill up there. So it makes sense with all the charging stations and the infrastructure that needs to go in to have a bigger electric vehicle fleet to use those the universal plug.
Yeah. Although I read today that the Postal Service in their attempt to go all electric with their fleet, their biggest hurdle isn't to get the cars or the vans, the delivery vans. Mm-hmm. It's to install the charging ports
at all the
post offices. Yeah.
And the thing with the electric vehicles is, they have heavy vehicles really lend, because those batteries are heavy. Mm-hmm. I don't think people realize how much a Model S weighs. Like they're heavy because the battery packs are so.
It's about 4,000 pounds for a Model 3 Plaid.
Yeah, and the Model 3 is the small one.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a vehicle that weighs like as much as a Tahoe does.
Yep.
It's nuts. But so vans, trucks, SUVs lend themselves. I've always said that Rolls-Royce should just elect because they're huge and heavy anyway.
I think they're going that way. Though. I think Maybach is. I think all those big. Yeah. They're going that way.
But make it like I always thought it'd be cool to have like a skateboard. So like rather than say you needed a pickup truck, you could just take say you had it set up as a minivan, just drive over, lift the body off, and when you rented the pickup truck, they just put the pickup truck body on top of it.
Yeah. So basically, you have one skateboard and 5 bodies you can put on top of it.
So if you wanted to buy another body, you could. So you could have your minivan body, but then put the truck body on it. They just lift up. But I think some company tried to do that.
I think that was Tesla's original idea on how to swap the batteries out.
Yeah.
But the battery packs they last over 10 years. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like that. And by then, people are already getting rid of the car or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I guess I'm hearing ducks. I'm hearing ducks in here.
Oh, no.
But I don't know. What will the reason why we brought that up is because who knows what Elon's going to do with his money? I mean, the guy just dropped $2.4 billion on a company he had no real reason to buy. Mm-mm. And he bought the majority, well, not the majority, but he's the largest shareholder of that company. For no other reason than to just mess around, basically. Like, that's FU money.
Yeah.
Now, imagine if he triples his FU money. Mm-hmm. He's already the richest man on the planet.
Yeah.
Right now. And the funny part is some people don't like him. They're like, well, he's the real life Iron Man. He could do so much damage. Yeah, but what if he's going to do good?
Yeah.
And all indication has been that he's going to do good.
Well, I think the people that don't like him are the people that like Twitter banning people.
Right.
I don't like companies banning anyone, even if I disagree with you.
I'm of the same viewpoint. 'Cause I don't want those people. I don't want them turning middle of the road people into extremists.
Yeah. Like the old ACLU, when they defended, neo-Nazis' right to protest, even though it was like no one supports their message, and well, obviously some people do, but
right.
No one I know does, but they still supported it because it was a free speech issue,
right?
But so I don't want to silence or ban anybody. That's the great part about living here. And the problem is eventually, like, sure, you say, okay, well, these are quacks and goofballs and whatever that are dangerous, and the medium is so powerful that how could you just let it be unbridled but to me, when you start selecting because of this, who ultimately has that power? And then at what point do they start limiting it for stuff that we all hold dear as Americans, but then all of a sudden they are now, for whatever reason, they've decided that, whoever's pulling their strings.
Yeah. And I mean, anyone listening to this can tell that our cadence and our mannerisms are a little bit different because this is a very nuanced topic, right? We don't want to say something like, I don't want our words to get misconstrued in what we're trying to say. I'm not for any of these extreme viewpoints or ideologies. Anyone who can go back to the archives of this podcast and see where we stand politically wise. We're both fairly liberal individuals, mindset wise, for our politics. But we both are fairly practical when it comes to real world consequences for some of the actions on behalf of people that are trying to suppress thought and speaking. Because in our minds, and at least I don't want to speak for you, but everything that we've said it kind of goes along with, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and sometimes the reaction is stronger than the original action. And if the original action right now is that you're pushing ordinary people to the fringes, imagine what the reaction is, and if the reaction is greater than the original action, the recoil could be awful.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm worried about. It's kind of, and again, you can tell with the way I'm talking. I'm really trying not to just throw words out there. I don't want it to be a word salad.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want people like, well, he loves Nazis. No, I think Nazis are deplorable people.
Right.
I'll use a Hillary Clinton-ism. I think they're deplorable.
Yeah.
They're, especially in my case. I mean, my wife's Jewish. It's like people calling Ben Shapiro anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
Even though he's Jewish.
Yeah.
It's the dumb. It's they throw out a word as a gotcha when there was no way possible it could be true. Mm-hmm. The guy doesn't hate himself.
Right. Or Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy.
Yes. Right.
Like, that's just absurd.
I mean, literally, Dave Chappelle did a freaking comedy sketch about it with the Clayton Bigsby sketch with the black white supremacist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a comedy sketch.
Yeah.
10 years ago. Now they're talking it into reality. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what they're really trying to do.
Yeah.
It drives me up a wall that the irrational and the insane is now thought to be rational and sane.
Yeah.
And people are going along with this. Now, the funny part is, like, we were talking the other day, and I think my point kind of got lost, but it was like, I didn't think people could be so stupid. I really didn't. But then, I go into the elementary school pickup line to pick up my kids from school, and I see all the idiots
doing
the dumb stuff. Like, the routine to go pick up your kid from school is the same every day. You get in this line, you wait here, you put the card in your window so they know who you're picking up. You drive through, you pick up your kid, like they bring the kid to your car, get in the car, you leave.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to, one, get out of your car. Two, you should have the thing up so they don't have to ask you who you're picking up.
Yeah.
Three, follow the other cars in line. They're not just parked on the side for fun.
Yeah.
That you, oh, hey, I'll just go around these cars and I'm going to pick up my kid. I'm going to be first.
Right. Look at these idiots.
Yeah, I can't believe, well, there must be something going on today at school. All these cars are parked on the side. No, idiot, we're waiting in line.
And the same thing happens every single day.
Every day. Like, honestly, when we were texting about it yesterday, it was worse today.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think it could get any worse.
Yeah.
But literally, you had like 3 cars that decided to drive past the line because there's a space there for the buses to go through. So the buses go to their area,
Yeah.
and the cars wait in the line on the left. The buses go to the right and go around the circle.
Yeah. And you don't park in that one spot because the buses can't make that turn.
Correct. And people do it every day.
Yeah.
Or they drive past the cars in the line thinking they're going to swing in, not realizing that they just passed everybody in the line to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't be this stupid.
Right.
Because and look, if it happened in the first week, first 2 weeks, no problem. Happens. No one really knows what the routine is. It's brand new this year.
Yeah.
We're on day 195. And people are making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
It's like you don't think people could be this stupid. And I hate use the word stupid, but you don't think people could be this stupid? Trust me, they're out there.
Oh yeah. Well, if you need any more evidence, just go to an airport.
Yeah.
You know, and
The person going through the TSA line.
yeah, yeah. That always got me. And then, so you come off like from an international flight.
Yeah.
So you come back from an international flight. So Dulles, when you land at the international arrivals, everyone has to go through customs and immigrations. Everyone. When you come off the jetway, you walk down, and it's all like they've got like the cattle chutes, and you have to go a certain direction. Without fail, some dum-dum gets off, and they stop right at the, like you're walking down a jetway. There's nowhere else for you to go.
Right.
And they come out and they stop and they start looking around like, which way do I go? I don't know. How about you follow everyone else?
Right.
We're all going to the same place.
Yeah.
Or the idiot that has to assemble their stroller in the aisle of the airplane.
Right.
You can't carry the kid.
Right. Carry him the 20 feet off the plane.
Yeah.
And then do the stroller.
But there's just like places like airports, pickup lines, it magnifies the stupid.
Yes.
But I think the internet magnifies the stupid too.
Well, of course, because whatever people read, they just take as fact.
Yeah. I do not take anything that any public figure, media personality, any of them, I take none of it at face value. I don't trust them, especially politicians, because they just lie. It's like sport to them.
Yep.
And then they say they didn't do it. You know.
See Maxine Waters at it again.
The last one I saw of her was housing vouchers.
She was yelling at the homeless people to go home.
Yeah, she's like, everyone, there's no more vouchers, go home. And someone's like, we don't have homes. Like, that's why we're here.
It's like they're why didn't an aide like kind of go in her ear like, hey, they can't go home, they're homeless.
Yeah. Like, don't these politicians have handlers?
Yeah, right.
We're supposed to like be responsible for this stuff.
It's like, hey, like if I were there and my handler didn't kind of whisper that in my ear, like, well, you really saved me from myself on that one, huh?
But the politicians run off at the mouth too.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them are nuts. Like when the one Congress, the Republican, was talking about the Jewish space lasers and like, okay,
I remember that guy going, "Oh my god,
it was a she. Like you
was a she. Oh,
yeah,
geez.
Marjorie something.
Was it Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Yeah.
Wow, she's got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like she. Oh my gosh, she's got to stop talking.
And that's just wacko stuff, and you can laugh at it.
I think Lauren Boebert's the other one.
Oh yeah.
But the Jewish space laser thing, man. Like, you could create so many memes from that.
Yeah.
Like someone like After she makes a speech, someone go, "Hey, those are real. I heard about those too.
Yeah. Yo, you see them too?
Yo, I knew they were doing something."
But then you have something like, I think it was Ocasio-Cortez saying that they need to compile lists of Trump supporters.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's so Jewish space lasers is just crazy and stupid from a crazy and stupid person. However, lists of Trump supporters is crazy and stupid, but it has the veneer of, you can't compile lists of your enemies.
The funny thing is, like,
what are you gonna do with the list?
we should. I want to create a Twitter handle and call it the politician's handler.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, they tried that list thing already. Didn't work out real well.
Right. Yeah. And the problem is, eventually, what they never get is that eventually someone else has the list and your name is on it. And that's the problem, because none of this stuff is ever constant. So yeah, they're in power now, but chances are come November, they're not going to be.
Could you imagine though, someone going up to him and be like, "Hey, yeah, you know that enemies list thing?
Yeah.
I think it was like about 80 years ago.
Yeah.
They did one of those.
Yeah, and it didn't work out well.
Didn't work out well for the people. Yeah. You might not want to say that again.
Yeah. But they go and they say it, and then they get applause and likes and retweets, and it's like legitimized. And
and then they say more crazy. Like, it's like that just emboldens them to say more crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, they love me. They love my idea of the list.
Yeah. And like, when I signed up for Twitter, I did it solely to follow Donald Trump, because I couldn't believe that this was the stuff that he was saying. And I was like, oh, wow, he's actually saying this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then it's like they all just jump. Like, you just have to be ridiculous, but in favor of. And I'll tell you what, like, to have Trump tweeting all his craziness, you're like, okay, like, at least, like, it's not hidden. It's out there in the open. You can't say you didn't know. It's right here. He was up at 2:00 in the morning on the can, shooting a tweet off, But the list stuff, like, that's all scary stuff. And what people don't really realize is that eventually someone else is compiling the list.
Right. Like, here's the if you condone a list, you're condoning someone else making a list too.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
Yeah. So we're gonna have lists of Biden supporters. Like, what are the lists and the craziness? Like, I don't know. Maybe Elon can change some of that at his with his newfound toy.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. Like you said, I'm surprised that there are so many people in favor of just shutting voices down.
Yeah,
even if they're nuts. Like, I get it. You don't want to hear some of this stuff.
Yeah,
but again, if you
and the thing is,
if you push down enough people,
yeah,
they end up going to a place where you really don't want them to go.
Yeah,
into the loving embrace of extremism.
Right. And some of it may be, and yes, some of the stuff that people say, it may be mean. It may hurt your feelings. But you know what? You'll survive.
Right. And
to just go and say, okay, that hurts this group's feelings, or that hurt. You know what? I want to know that person's an asshole.
And that's the thing. Let the crazy out. Let it out there.
Yeah.
And let everyone laugh at it and see how crazy it is.
Yeah.
But if you're going to, the problem is, if you're banning things that are true, everyone says you can have your opinion, but you can't have your own facts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually from the people that don't have the facts to begin with.
Yeah. And,
the Hunter Biden laptop is one thing. You've got, the lab leak thing is the other. Those are the two things we mentioned, but there's at least 10 other examples.
Oh, yeah.
Of things that were claimed to be disinformation that now are considered to be either probable or confirmed factual.
Yeah, or is now the new gospel.
So, and that's what I mean. Like, you're almost, rather than shutting out the extreme points of view, you're shutting out non-extreme points of view. It's just points of view. It's just factual information that you just don't like. You're pushing
inconvenient,
and that's what I mean. You're pushing rational people into the loving embrace of the extreme.
Yeah,
and that's where it becomes dangerous. You're now you're growing the ranks of the extremes, and people are like, oh no, that would never happen. That won't happen. It's happening.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you, so like when I say I don't trust anything, I want to see, I want to verify, I'm able to like see it. And hey, you know what? I don't have an opinion. I don't have a call on this right now. So I just want to let this one play out. But the way everything's constructed is you have to, you see all the talking heads. The second some new thing comes out, they all come on and they're yammering about their opinion of it, based upon no evidence, based upon inaccurate reporting, based upon conjecture, half-truths, whatever. But look at the Hunter Biden laptop thing. Where they have the 25 intelligence experts all went out and say that it's a Russian plant, it's a disinformation campaign.
Well, then you have the Steele dossier from the Clintons.
Yep.
Like they were using that to impeach Donald Trump.
How many millions of dollars did they waste on that investigation?
They had the Mueller investigation. Yeah. Then they had whatever the last investigation was that just pretty much said it was all fabricated.
Yeah.
Like you literally spent 4 years and millions of dollars for a report on something that was completely made up.
Yeah.
You got the wool pulled over your eyes. And rather than owning up to it and apologizing for it, they all double down on it. And
every time.
They're literally still saying that Donald Trump was in bed with the Russians.
Yeah.
Today. Like, it was literally proven unfactual that this thing existed.
Yeah.
I mean, it existed, but it was completely fabricated out of thin air.
Yeah.
And no one will admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Adam Schiff, the guy who was the one spearheading that whole sham of a what do they call him, hearing in Congress with Mueller. Not one time has he said, I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I was duped.
Yep.
At least then you would have respect from people that you've lost all the respect from. And now, granted, he doesn't get elected by those people.
Yeah.
He gets elected by the people that wanted to believe it. And that's fine. But you've now lost all credibility. And this is where the New York Times and the Washington Post comes in. You've lost all credibility with anyone from the middle to the right, politically. The only people you have left are the people on the left that will still believe anything you put out there.
Yeah. And there's going to come a time where their credibility is going to be needed to get, say, this Ukraine thing boils up into an actual shooting war with NATO and Russia or whoever else is jumping in on it. You're going to need accurate information, but now they've sacrificed all their own credibility.
Well, and the danger in that is where the New York Times might have been considered the account of record. That's gone.
Yeah.
So even when, let's say they put out something factual. Let's say they put out an article tomorrow that an asteroid is going to hit the United States. Yeah, like I'm going to use some hyperbole here. At least 50 to 60% of this country won't believe it.
No.
And that's the danger. Let's say it's actually coming.
Yeah.
That's the danger of it.
Yep.
You've ruined all your credibility when you might actually need it. And this is what I think happened. I think there's a group of people that shot their shot and they didn't make it.
Yeah.
Like they pushed it hard and they try to get everyone in lockstep and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And let's say this midterm wave comes through and flips the political power. That was it. Yeah. Your shot's gone. You're never going to have the amount of trust that you had at the beginning. You're never going to have that again.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're never going to be able to take that shot again.
Yep.
and you probably screwed yourself for the next 20 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a good chance that the Democrats might not recover from this for a while. Now, don't get me wrong. They will.
Yeah.
Because the Republicans will screw this up.
Yeah.
As soon as they take control of either the House or the Senate or both, their crazies will come out. And they will blow whatever goodwill they had.
Yeah, so you remember when they got the so I guess they took the House back. So they had a majority in House and Senate.
It was 2010, right?
Yeah.
When they got it back.
Yeah.
So Obama got elected in 2008. They pushed through the Affordable Care Act.
Yep.
And they lost the House and the Senate?
No, they kept the Senate. The Democrats kept the Senate.
And they lost the House.
Yeah, but their hold on the Senate was
like 2?
Yeah, it was kind of like it is now.
And they had the 2 independents.
Right. So they do that. But then the Republicans started knowing that it would never make it through the Senate. Every session, so they all got their chance to do it, they voted to repeal Obamacare.
Yeah.
Knowing that it was never going to make it past the Senate, let alone, so you're going to repeal and the guy that would have to sign it would be the guy whose name is on it.
Right.
You just wasted time. And then that whole sequestration nonsense.
Right. And so now you're not the serious people.
Right.
Before they weren't the serious people, now you're not the serious people. So like you literally took, I've always said this, the first party to get the presidency, House, and Senate and doesn't try and go so extreme to push forward an agenda and maybe just get some things done that everyone wants will be the first party to not lose at the midterms and possibly hold it even through the next presidential election.
But they have to come out of these extreme positions.
Yes.
And right now with the Dems, it's the extreme wing of the party that's running it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all the media, the echo chamber, so they think that people like this stuff. And really, they like to look down upon people who are religious and people who live in flyover country and all this stuff. But guess what? They're there and they vote. So,
like I said, though, even the people that are somewhat apologizing are doing it in such a condescending way.
Yeah,
like Bill Maher, like that guy. You've got to embrace them.
Yeah.
You've got to bring them back in the fold, even though they were wrong.
Yeah,
you can't be like, I was right, you were wrong.
Right. Even especially when you're not right.
Right, and that's the thing. Like they still think that they're right.
Yeah,
they're the merciful ones, willing to welcome you back. Mm-hmm. I am merciful.
Yeah.
It's like it's just it drives me nuts, but it doesn't, because I also know that it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
everything's gonna swing back the other way, and we're gonna, in probably 2 years or after this year, we're gonna say how nuts Republicans are. And,
we'll complain about them.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. You got anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Protect your identity online. Use private internet access for less than $2.50 a month. Go to the website, dumbideapodcast.com. Click on our link for private internet access. Protect your credit card information online. And we will see you next time.